Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys for another show, for another episode of our Managerial Tactical Breakdown series. Now this is a show in which we get the perspective of a journalist and expert about a managerial candidate that could be joining Arsenal in the coming days, weeks, months, who knows these days. But the manager that we're going to talk about today is Marcelino. Now, first things first, you notice that surrounding me right now is a very different environment to what you would usually see from the Gooner Talk, and that is because I have finally moved into my brand new house. Very excited about it, and you'll be seeing a lot more of it as I conduct the podcast and the shows in it. Everything's still not sorted. Wi-Fi is not done until Friday, so this is why all 4G has been taken over and why maybe this upload is a little late, but I'm sure you can forgive me for that. And a new microphone should be arriving extremely soon to do the podcast with. Very excited about that. But let's delve into the reason why you are here and why you've clicked on this video, and that is to discuss Marcelino. Now, I am very happy to be joined once again by Mr. Jon Driscoll, who's been on the show before, host of La Liga Weekly, well in the know about all Spanish things. So he is probably the perfect person for you guys to listen to speak about Marcelino. And the first question derives from the reaction that fans have had, basically, and I've seen on Twitter and all the social medias regarding Marcelino, and that is in how similar he is to Unai Emery. So, John, is it a myth? Is it true? How similar is Marcelino to Unai Emery?
Right then, Gooners, I'm back trying to sell you another manager. How did that last one work out for you? Tom's first question is, how far wide of the mark is the reaction that Marcelino is basically Emery 0.2? They've got a point, to be honest with you. It breaks the immutable law of football that when you sack a manager, you can't appoint a guy who is very much like him in his place. Now, there are obvious similarities, there are obvious differences. Similarities, he's Spanish. He is from the second tier of European football managers, so he's not top brass. And he doesn't speak English, doesn't speak a lot of English. He is learning English, he's having lessons. It's admirable that he's learning the language. It doesn't give him great communication. It's one of the questions for later. We'll get on to that. He's a good manager, Marcelino. People who are trashing him are being unkind. Whether I will recommend him as the Arsenal manager, we'll get to. I'm not convinced, to be honest with you. He's always improved his teams. They had similar outcomes at Valencia in a way. What Emery managed to do when he was at Sevilla, he won trophies. He won those European trophies by really focusing all his fire on the Europa League. Whereas Marcelino has got good, consistent league positions. He got Villarreal, his last but one job. They were in the Segunda, the second division, going nowhere. When he took over, got them up, got them back into Europe. Terrific job. Similar at Valencia. He has improved teams. He's a hard-working 4-4-2 defensive organisation kind of coach. He's not an exciting coach. There are similarities between him and Emery, but there are also differences.
Well, there you go. You've heard it from the man's mouth himself. You can make up your own mind about how you feel about those comments. A lot more to come. And speaking of which, the next question is around how Marcelino fared at his time in Valencia. Many people have been critical of it, others less so. But John, what is the real insight about his time at the Mestalla?
Okay, question 2. How did he get on at Valencia? Yes, indeed, they are on a roller coaster at Valencia. He was the perfect man for them at that time. They've been through this crazy period where they'd sacked Nuno, another man linked with the Arsenal job, who we know is a really good coach, did a good job with the Wolves. They sacked him when they were still in the Champions League. They went through Gary Neville. And then Paco Ayestarán, Cesare Prandelli went in for a while and walked out on them. It was crazy. They had appointed the wrong men. Made no sense. The Neville appointment obviously made no sense. Prandelli was a strange one. And then they were able to get Marcelino. He'd been sacked by Villarreal. He'd fallen out with them. Bizarre circumstances about whether he'd gone easy in a game at the end of the season that mattered nothing to Villarreal, but mattered a lot to his hometown club, Sporting Gijón. And so he's effectively accused of throwing a game at the end of the season. They sacked him. It was a silly move by Villarreal. They haven't recovered since. I know you might say it's a matter of principle. So he came in, he made them well organised, got the defence sorted out, but they weren't boring, and they had for a while they had a little crack at the title, got them into the Champions League. Second season they struggled for a bit, but then he turned them round and they finished in the Champions League positions at the end of the season again and won the Copa del Rey. It's the only significant trophy he's won in his career, and trophies are hard to win in Spain because Barcelona and Real Madrid and then Atletico have monopolised them in recent seasons. So it's a good thing to have won a trophy in Spain. So he was a successful manager. A bit like Villarreal, they seem pretty quick to sack him. I think he's a spiky kind of character. So that's why he's on the market. And he can't get another La Liga job this season. Quirky rule that once you've been employed in La Liga in a season, you can't go back to a different club that season. So that's why he's on the international market and looking so hard for a job elsewhere.
Now, before Unai Emery arrived at the Emirates, one of the key things that we heard was that defensively, he wasn't too bad. In fact, that his defensive record at Sevilla was okay at times. But when he arrived at Arsenal, he never really sort of improved what we got at Arsenal in terms of our defence. I mean, anyone coming in dealing with these players may have some job on them. But I'm really intrigued in terms of Marcelino defensively. How good is he as a manager? And do you think he would improve what we have at Arsenal?
So, Emery, decent defensive reputation, but didn't work out. How would Marcelino fare? Marcelino, I think, is a better organiser of a defence. 4-4-2, players know what they're doing. It's hard work. You run around lots. Doesn't mean they're boring, because certainly in his first season, his Villarreal team were a good watch. Safety first, perhaps, but they did then counter-attack. Same when he had players with pace for Valencia. Arsenal have got they're equipped with players of pace, so he'd be looking to utilise that, probably in a 4-4-2. He's very much a 4-4-2 man, even if it means squeezing people into the wrong positions. A bit of defensive organisation would go a long way at Arsenal. I think that's widely acknowledged, isn't it? I also think it's probably acknowledged that they could do with an upgrade in defensive talent. But that's whoever comes in at Arsenal needs to upgrade the squad, and then the debate is there about how much money there is to spend. Better defensive coach than Unai Emery, I would say.
Now, John, you've already mentioned that communication could be an issue, but not only in terms of language. How good is Marcelino at communicating his ideas? We never thought that Unai Emery grasped the English language enough, but actually, just being able to communicate your ideas in general is an extremely key thing, no matter what language you speak. So in terms of communication, where does Marcelino rank?
So next question, communication problem for Emery. Yeah, how would Marcelino cope? It's the same, I'm afraid. And for me, this is the big barrier. He's been in charge of clubs for well over 700 matches, got a good winning record, got a good record of improving clubs. The only one he really failed at was Sevilla, and he wasn't there long. Looking back, that was a bit harsh, perhaps, that he was sacked so soon, but they were a bit of a shambles. Got stuck at Zaragoza, bad career move for him at that time. They had no money, they had to shed, they had debts that had been mounting up. So, very good coach. I like him. He's having English lessons, but I'm sorry if this makes me a dinosaur. I would not appoint a manager who does not speak the language. I know Arsenal are an international squad, but the core language that they all have, at least as a second language, is English. And then if the manager doesn't speak English, there are just communication problems. And I think that was the issue with Emery. He was a manager, when Emery was in Spain, he was a manager with real intensity. He used to be shouting, he was up and down, shouting, barking orders all the time. And he just couldn't convey his ideas, I think, when he was in the Premier League. And I'm afraid that Marcelino might have similar problems. Never been outside of Spain to manage, so no experience of doing that. Sorry if this makes me a dinosaur, but if I was an Arsenal fan, if I was an Arsenal director, I would be looking at some of the coaches who speak English. I'm sorry that's a radical thought, and I'm sorry if you think that means I'm suggesting that, a great club like Arsenal would go for someone like Chris Wilder. But Chris Wilder speaks English. He's improved every club he's been at. Marcelino speaks Spanish. He's improved just about every club he's been at. There's a similarity between them, except one of them has got huge experience in the English game, and one of them has got huge experience in the Spanish game. I don't know why you would go for a guy who doesn't speak fluent English. That's, I'm afraid, my bottom line.
And finally, an extremely important question regarding Marcelino. If he was to actually sign on that dotted line and upset quite a few Arsenal fans, how successful would you see the move going?
Right, final question. How successful would he be? I don't want to trash him. He's a good coach. So the people being disrespectful on social media I think are making a mistake. But I wouldn't choose him as the Arsenal coach because, as I mentioned, if you listen to the communication answer, that's the crucial point for me. He's a good coach who organises teams. They're solid defensively, but not boring. They're okay. So I tell you, even if the Atletico Madrid job came up, if Simeone was tempted away somewhere or just had enough, Marcelino would be one of the coaches pretty high on that list who I would go for. I'd go for Marcelino for that job above Unai Emery. They will be competing for similar levels of jobs, those guys. So it's the guy you've just sacked would be, in a similar kind of bracket to Marcelino. So he would start on the back foot because of the language. He would start on the back foot because he's too similar, for fair or unfair reasons. He's perceived as being similar to Unai Emery. His record is good but not perfect. He doesn't have a glittering array of trophies. He won the Copa del Rey with Valencia, good achievement. Got clubs into European competition, good achievement. Good, solid coach. If the Betis job was up, yes, I'd recommend Marcelino. If the Atletico Madrid job, as I say, you'd consider Marcelino. Sorry if I'm a dinosaur. Sorry, I'm supposed to be the Spanish football expert on this. If I was an Arsenal fan, I would want, if it was a foreign coach, I want him to speak fluent English so he can get his ideas over. Marcelino doesn't do that. And he's not such an elite coach. Simeone, would you take Simeone? Well, you won't get Simeone realistically, but would you take him because he's an elite level coach even though his English is limited? Possibly. Marcelino's not that level. So for me, I'm afraid it's a no. Keep looking.
A huge thank you to Jon Driscoll. You can go check him out on Twitter at Jon Driscoll 2020. You can also go and check out his podcast, which I implore you to do so, with Terry Gibson, La Liga _weekly on Twitter. Fantastic podcast covering all things La Liga. Terry is a brilliant pundit, a very, very good pundit. And yes, I know he's ex-Spurs, but in terms of his knowledge on football, and he commentates on English games too, he is second to none. So please do go check that out. I hope you've enjoyed the show. I hope you've enjoyed learning more about Marcelino. Maybe it's changed your mind. If it has, or if it hasn't, please let me know in the comment section below. Apologies if there's any echo around it. It's quite empty in here now. We don't actually have sofas arriving till Monday, so hopefully when that's all in and sorted, and the desk is set up and the podcast room is sorted, then I can get back on track with all the uploads. See you again very, very soon. We've got another managerial tactical breakdown coming out this week regarding Paulo Sousa, a much less known name amongst the football verse, as we're going to call it. So look forward to that. Turn the notifications on, subscribe if you're new, and give the video a like if you enjoyed what you saw today. See you again very, very soon. And as always, up the Arsenal.